The Mets just keep on losing. They went to Cleveland and laid an egg, and getting swept by the Guardians, they now drop to a season low 7 games under 500. It's about time for my first rant of the 2024 season. We'll talk about the sad state of affairs in Mets land with Anthony Rivera, host of the Subway to Shea podcast. It's all coming up next on the Sick Podcast, Mets Magic.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to the Sick Podcast. Mets Magic with Jake Brown.
And it's in there, strike three called. The Mets win the pennant. The New York Mets have won the National League pennant. Put it in the books. The New York Mets, for the first time in 15 years, are champions of the National League.
The sickest New York Mets podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Welcome back to the Sick Podcast, Mets Magic. I'm your host, Jake Brown. You can get me on social media at Jake Brown Radio and follow the show on X at Sick Pod Mets. Subscribe if you're watching us on that YouTube page at the Sick Podcast, Mets Magic. Smash that thumbs up button. Comment below. How rough are you feeling about the Mets? Do you have any hope that there will be a tomorrow? And however the rest of the song from Annie goes, let us know in the comments. Make sure you subscribe and subscribe wherever you get podcasts, Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to shows, and get me on my YouTube at Jake Brown Radio as well. I've been doing a lot of food reviews, not a lot of Mets talk on there because this team is miserable. In a couple of minutes, I'll be joined by my buddy Anthony Rivera. He hosts the Subway to Shea podcast. But before Anthony comes on, and he might watch this in the background studio, I just got to vent here because we knew coming into the 2024 season that the Mets would not be very good. We knew that this team, as they projected and as the projections would say, back to the Billy Epler press conference from last year, that this team might compete, but probably won't make the playoffs. They'll take a step back. They'll get younger. They'll get faster. We'll see some excitement, but maybe some head scratchers and some mistakes from the youth. And we'll see a team be under 500 and maybe be tough to watch at times. But when I signed up for the 2024 Mets season, I didn't sign up for prior to Memorial Day, May 23rd, sitting here and watching a team 7 games under 500. A team that is all the way back in the standings. In 4th place in the National League East. 3.5 back of the 3rd wild card spot, which doesn't sound like much, but it's a lot. And they're only 3.5 back because everyone else is pretty much stunk. The 3rd wild card team is the Padres, and the Mets are very far down in that graphic to the point they're below the Washington Nationals. Unacceptable baseball. Unacceptable from all fronts. The defense has been bad. The base running mistakes. There is a bad news Bears-Mets moment on a daily occasion. The pitching stinks. They're not going far into games. They're making defensive mishaps. They're not playing complimentary baseball. They aren't hitting. You want to talk about not hitting? Let me go through this lineup. Lindor, 203, career, 270. Alonso, 236, career, 250. Nimmo, 220, career, 267. Beatty, 228. McNeil, 240. Career, 294. Omar Narvaez has an on-base percentage of 183. That's Al Leiter territory. Al Leiter. From top to bottom, these are not the guys performing like the back of their baseball cards. Instead, the only ones who have are even better is Harrison Bader, and JD Martinez is hitting like JD Martinez. Other than those two guys, the rest of this lineup sucks. And I don't know if they're hearing the noise. I don't know if they're seeing the deleted tweets. The tweet from Steve Cohen talking about we might have to wait till the trade deadline to do anything, which he's probably right. But for the next 2 months, this can't be the baseball we're watching. Citi Field attendance is down 20%. You know why? Because these guys suck. This is pathetic, putrid, unwatchable baseball, and you should be turning it off. You should be changing the channel, because if you're subjecting yourself to 3 hours of this bullshit every night, you're a disgrace, because I'm not. And you could say, oh, this, that, you're not. This is hard to watch, and something has got to give. And you could say, you should have known, Jake. You should have known they'd be bad. Oh, yeah? Should the Mets have known to raise ticket prices? Should the Mets have known to raise food prices? Should the Mets have known to raise drink prices when they were going to be this bad? You also got to feel for the people within the organization who make a living off this team being watchable. The people selling suites, the people selling food in suites, the people trying to sell season tickets, the people doing content whose viewership is based on a team that's competitive enough to care enough to follow them. And I'm at the bottom of that totem pole. I'm talking about top to bottom. And it's not fair to the people who dish their hard-earned money, to the people who make their hard-earned money off this team being watchable, respectable, and sure, they might be playing hard. They might be doing their best, but it sure as hell does not look like it. It looks like a team that's quit on a manager who hasn't done that much wrong. I can't put a lot of the blame on Mendoza. He's trying things. He's moving the lineup around. He's playing different guys. Nothing is working. They're losing to you, me, your mother, your sister, your brother, your wife, your uncle, your second cousin, your dog, your cat. They play them, they lose to them. That's the Mets motto. Nearly got their ass swept by the last place Marlins. They go to Cleveland. They have a lead finally to avoid a sweep. Who hits a homer? Andres Jimenez. And I like Francisco Lindor, but something's got to give with him this year. He's got to turn this thing around. We gave him the ovation. I defended him to the core. I said, root on this guy, cheer him on. But this is getting ridiculous, to the point where it's very clear that the Guardians are winning the Andres Jimenez trade, not the Francisco Lindor trade. Jimenez has been great this year. Francisco Lindor has not. This is a piss poor product, and for people to invest and go to games, I don't blame them for not going. I'm a diehard. I go to 50 games a year. Most of them I pay for tickets. I am losing an interest in going to the games. When I lose interest, all hope is gone, because I, through thick and thin, will go to games and watch a losing team. But this isn't even a fun losing team. There's no fun part about Jeff McNeil grounding out to second base, or DJ Stewart looking at strike three, or Pete Alonso striking out, or Pete Alonso grounding into a double play with the bases loaded, or Starling Marte being lazy on a fly ball and it getting by him, or the Mets getting doubled up after a double on a ground ball to short. How does that happen? How does that happen? How does that happen? Every day there's something new with this team. And I know it was going to be bad, but I never thought it would be this bad. And on Memorial Day weekend, God bless America, God is not blessing the New York Mets. Thank you to those who served our country, to those who put their lives on their line for our country, for our beautiful country, for our freedom. But this weekend, on Monday, when you're at Citi Field watching the Dodgers and Shohei Ohtani pound the Mets, you won't be thanking the New York Mets. Something has got to give. You have a 10-game homestand. You have a almost all-time low Citi Field attendance getting ready to be set. The attendance is down 20%. You have 113 games left to do something, to show life, to start the oxygen tank, to get the liquid IV, shoot yourself with it, and wake up. Because these aren't the guys that we watched our whole career. These aren't your mom and pop's New York men. This isn't your batting title Jeff McNeil. This isn't your home run king Pete Alonso. This isn't your all-star and gold glove Francisco Lindor. This isn't your Brandon Nimmo, get on base all the time, hit home runs, drive in runs, Brandon Nimmo. This isn't the starting pitching staff that we love. This isn't the Edwin Diaz, cue the trumpet, Timmy Trumpet performance at Citi Field that we love. These guys, I don't know them, and I don't want to know them. I want to know the guys that were competitive, that for the first month did show some heart, that were coming back, that were walking off. This Mets team, I don't want to know them. And the time to turn it around is now. 10 home games. You got the Giants, the Dodgers, the Diamondbacks. The Giants and Diamondbacks both in front of you, and the only thing that you're alive in 3.5 back in the wild card. A Dodgers team mixed in first place that's a favorite to win a championship. You got to get out here and go 7-3 and turn this thing around and get somewhat around 500. Because 7 games under is not going to cut it. Show some life. Or on those dog days in summer and July, the only people at the ballpark will be Mr. Met, Mrs. Met, the T-shirt squad, the workers, the attendants, the ushers, the fan greeters, and a couple of diehards who got a ticket for $1 on the secondary market. You're listening to the Sick Podcast, Mets Magic. I'm Jake Brown, at Jake Brown Radio, at SickPodMets on Twitter, X. Let's bring in my guest now. I'm sorry, Anthony, for making you wait for so long, but that was very therapeutic. How you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good. I feel like every time we link up that you got a rant going on, and I'm like, you know what? The Mets have just stunk for so long that like every time is a rant. Like they have been so bad this year. Look, you talked about who's going to be at Citi Field at the rest of the season. I am probably going to be there because I have a ticket plan that I have to get through this year. I don't know if I'm renewing it next year. They're expensive. You mentioned how expensive ticket prices are. I may come maybe 4 or 5 times a year because, gotta live, right? And paying for this team that's not showing any life is frustrating. It really is frustrating. And they always talked about, run prevention. They're not doing that. They're not playing good defense. They're not hitting the ball. We have just seen some frustrating baseball, and I don't want to get a letter by July from the Cohens telling me that this is now rebuild mode because of the way that this team has played and the way that the core has performed this season.
And that's one of the frustrating things I was talking about. It's not Harrison Bader, the new guy, JD Martinez. It's the guys that are here who, when Steve Cohen tweets about the trade deadline, who are right at the top of the list on the guys you got to trade for. Now, Brandon Nimmo's probably staying, but when it comes to Jeff McNeil, you're on the block. When it comes to Pete Alonso, you're on the block. I can't, I'm ripping Omar Narvaez we didn't expect much out of him, but 155, bro, at least get on base 2 out of 5 times. He's not even doing that. He's getting on base 1 out of 6 times. Yeah, he'll be gone, but this is just unacceptable across the board. And you meant the base running blunders, like when JD Martinez doubles and then they get doubled up on Starling Marte ball. I forgot if it was a single or it was a ground ball, but he got doubled rounding first after Martinez got tagged out. That's not something that happens at a Long Island Ducks game. That doesn't happen in a high school game. That is amateur hour shit that is just unacceptable. And something they're raising the prices. I feel bad. If Johnny in the ticket office calls, I'm going to pick up his call and console him now. I always ignore the calls. I'm going to answer them, and I'm going to put on my Jack Nicholson voice, Anthony, and say, Goose Fraba. Because they make a living commission off people buying tickets. And like you said, you might not renew. Why would someone be dumb enough to renew when this team is a laughing stock? We've had plenty of losing Mets teams, but even some of the losers, like even last year, there were some fun moments and like they weren't laughable for most of the year. This is almost laughable. And it's third, fourth inning. I'm watching like America's Got Talent Golden Buzzer clips on YouTube. Like I'm switching to watch something happy to lift my spirits. We watch the Mets some days. We have a bad day, and a Mets win will lift our spirits. And it's part of the joy of being a Mets fan is that walk off in April, that comeback in April. We lose sleep in excitement. We wake up like, wow, what a game. We watch back the highlights, the Gary Cohen Dunkin' Donuts tossing a pen on the table. We don't even get those moments because they're losing, Anthony, every freaking night.
And the funny thing is, even with as bad as they were last season, this team wasn't as bad fundamentally with Rafael Ortega and Jonathan Ruiz on the team. The consistent is this core group that's together. And I'm not saying to break them up, but we've seen the players that David Stearns has brought in here. And outside of Adrian Hauser, who's been absolutely awful, every other player has kind of been a good component to this team. You talk about Harrison Bader and JD Martinez. Look at the pitchers, Luis Severino, Sean Manaea. They've all been good. It's just that this core group, and it sucks to single him out because like you, I was the chant, rah, rah, clap for Francisco Lindor guy, but it's May and he's batting around 200. And it's not the fact that he's just batting around 200. He's been given ample opportunities to come up in big spots, and he has not done that yet. He has not done that this year, and he may hit 30 for 30, although I think he'll be a little bit less than that. He may come up with the stats, but are they going to be hollow? Like, is this team already out of contention by the time he gets to, pad that 250, 30 home runs, 30 stolen bases, maybe 80, 85 RBIs? I don't want it to be too late. I just don't want to have to deal with that again this year.
Lindor is here for the long haul. Like, There's no denying he's not getting traded.
No,
he's here. So this is unacceptable, and it's something you have to live with, where Jeff McNeil is a weird situation because his contract is here, but will he be here? Because the Mets have to eat some of the money if they're going to trade him. His value is at an all-time low. A once batting champ, a once automatic hitter, got his contract. What happened to him? And it's not like he got paid up the wazoo. He got paid nicely, for sure. And a lot more than average American, a lot more than corporate, a lot more than most of the world. But in terms of baseball contract, he wasn't paid to the level of Francisco Lindor, but he got $15 million a year the next couple of years coming at him. And does the team eat that? Do the Mets have to eat all of it? Because they eat a lot. Like, everyone praised Epler for trading Scherzer and Verlander and them getting top prospects. They ate a shitload of money in order to keep those guys. And they're going to have to eat not a shitload, but a decent load of money if they want to trade Jeff McNeil. I just don't know if anyone's going to say, oh, we'll give him a try. Maybe he'll return to that, because his at-bats are lazy. The frustration he has, we've known that his whole career is off the charts. It almost seems like maybe he should switch to golf. I don't know if something's going at home. He does have a pregnant wife, so maybe long nights at home. He's got the baby as well. Like, there might... I don't want to talk about his home life, but I hope he's taking that off his mind when he's on the field. I feel bad if that's the case, but you're still getting paid very handsomely, Anthony, to show up. And a singles hitter not hitting singles has no place in an everyday lineup for me.
Yeah, especially if you're not that batting champion hitting 330, it just is not going to work. He doesn't come up in big spots. Just as much as I want to get on Francisco Lindor, the same thing goes for Pete. The same goes for Jeff McNeil. He did switch to the knobless bat again, and that seems to have been working for him this week. I don't know why he changed out of doing that. I don't know how much that affects, but he has hit 2 home runs. He's got 5 RBIs, and he's batting over 300 the last 7 games. So that's a good sign there. But I'm telling you this right now, if this team is 6 games or so out of the last wild card spot, and this guy's hitting well, I am taking suitors. Him, obviously Pete, I don't want to trade, but if they have to get some minor league pieces back, I guess it's okay because it's just not working. And then you trade the starting pitchers, right? Manaya, you trade you trade Severino. If you can find someone for Reed Garrett, who's been great, and does have I think he has a little more of an extended contract than, I don't think he's a free agent, but he's pitching so well, and I don't know if he can replicate what he's done this season. You got to make some moves here because I don't want the Mets to go into this trade deadline giving us false hope like the Angels organization gave to their fan base last year, and we all know how that ended up.
Reed Garrett's a tough one because he is under team control for a while, so he would be cheap. So he's almost one. Yeah, if you get something for him, go. But if you could keep him for cheap, he's part of maybe a cheap kind of future in the bullpen. And you made
I would keep him. I would keep him, but everyone keeps saying trade McNeil, trade Alonso. Like,
you might have to package them with Garrett.
Yeah, while they're all like not hitting well, you can't trade these guys and get what you want for guys that are batting 220 or 200 and are not delivering. You have to trade from these players that are playing well. And that's why I mentioned Severino, Manaya, and Garrett has been the best player on the team so far this year.
It is very interesting that when you look at, like you said, the guys that David Stearns brought in here have really, for the most part, outside of Hauser, but Hauser was also part of the trade with Tyrone Taylor, who's actually been pretty solid. He's played part-time. He's been okay. He's not lighting it up. He started off great. He's kind of regressed back down to earth. But like you said, the guys he brought in, JD, the late signing, solid. Harrison Bader, arguably, he's been the best kind of everyday player in the Mets, essentially, in 281. But the guys who were, and Severino, been solid. Jorge Lopez has really been good, a guy that he brought in. So Stearns has done a solid job, but it's that core that's an issue. And, I do want to trade Pete Alonso. I'm sorry. If there are 6 games out, I do want to trade Pete Alonso if he's bashing homers, because his at-bats, I know he's on a bit of a hot streak. The amount of times he grounds into double plays or doesn't have a productive out, like runner at third, under 2 outs, the double plays he has and not hitting sack flies, fly balls, it's almost like he's just trying too hard to hit home runs. Maybe the contract talk is getting to him. I think you have to trade him if he's not hitting, Anthony. I know that's going to be the talk in the next 2 months, but is it even appeasing the fans if he's here for August, September for a team that's out of contention? It wouldn't appease me seeing him hit a home run on Labor Day, the 30-second home run on Labor Day with the Mets 6 games out. I'm sorry. I won't give a flying fuck. Sorry, excuse my French. If he homers in a meaningless September game.
Well, yeah, it's the same thing with Lindor as well. If they're homering and they're padding their stats, it really means nothing. Look, there are a lot of fans on social media that want to trade Pete Alonso, so you're not alone on that whole situation. Look, Pete Alonso, I have always gotten on him for, striking out on those sliders that are in the other team's dugout. This guy's now striking out at pitches right down the plate, man. Like in big spots too. Like he's getting ample opportunities to come up big, and he's striking out right down the plate. I don't know what I don't know what it is with him or the rest of the team. Is it the philosophy of hitting? Are they getting fed too much information from Jeremy Barnes and Eric Chavez? I don't know what it is. And like if this team continues to not hit, do you start considering getting new hitting coaches? I like these guys have come over from the last regime. Do you keep that going and hope for the best? The Mets are in a really sticky situation right now.
What do you do with Starling Marte? An interesting piece. He's got 1 year left on his contract. Is he your right fielder next year? He's got 1 year left at right around $20.75 million. So he's going to cost you $20 million. Again, another player that if you trade, you probably got to eat some of that contract. He's hitting 260, not walking a lot. His OBP is only 309. I feel like he's been great throwing guys out, but defensively, I don't know if it's laziness or reading balls wrong. Like the other day, a ball, he comes in and then he goes, it should have been a routine fly ball for him. He didn't get to it. I think his defense has regressed, but he hasn't been atrocious at the plate. What do you do here with Starling Marte if the trade deadline comes? Does he go and you call up one of these young outfielders?
I would trade him. I would trade him A worst case scenario, you can stick Jeff McNeil out in right field, or, just if they're trading him at this point, the team's already out of it. So then just throw DJ Stewart in there and let him play. I know it's not great defense, but at this point, the team is already out of it. They're not going to have anything to show. I don't know. Starling Marte, to me, his play is just weird to me. I feel like he's like a little lazy or lackadaisical, or nonchalant. I don't know what it is. Just something about him right now is not the 2022 guy. I know he's throwing runners out at the plate, and I'm very thankful for that. At least that's been going. His play in right field has just not been great. Going back on balls, he hasn't been able to catch some. His base running has just been, like you mentioned, the play with JD Martinez. It's been off. He's hitting better, but still, I don't know. I would trade him as well if I could.
Mentally, it looks like a team that's checked out. It's May 23rd. It's unacceptable. You look at the other side of town and teams playing for New York, look at what the Knicks did. I mean, despite them losing, fought till the bitter end for this city. Guys played hurt. Josh Hart played nowhere near 100%. OG Anunoby tried to play on one leg. The Rangers in the Eastern Conference Finals, and I know it's different sports. It might sound cliche and dumb, but this is New York City. This is a city that works hard. We have the most expensive city on the planet to live in. People coming to Mets games when a thing of deodorant was $11 for me. Deodorant, you need it. You got to buy it, or your swamp ass needs it. But it's $11. Breathing is $20. Going outside costs money. For people to put the hard-earned money into a $18.79 Korean fried chicken in the promenade level with Anthony Rivera, to pay $14.99 for a vodka soda, splash of cran in a cool little mug that you'll bring home. It ain't easy.
$40 for parking.
$40 to park. A ticket is $5. You could get 8 games for the price of a parking ticket. It is unaffordable for most people to go to a game. You can make 6 figures in New York and still struggle, and a lot of people don't get that. You can make 100, and this is a whole other kind of podcast, financial podcast. You can make 150 grand and still struggle in New York. But these guys are out here getting doubled up on first base on a single. They're not reading signs. A guy makes a diving catch in center field. They don't tag up and score somehow. There's just so much unwatchable baseball that we're seeing. And there's 113 games to go. And I don't want to be talking about trade this guy, trade this guy, trade this guy. But they're not showing any sense of life. Just when they win one, they never win 2 in a row. It's almost like when their next 2-game win streak, we have to call it a win streak because it's just not happening. They're getting swept. They're losing series. They've lost 4 straight series, 5 of their last 6. They've been swept 3 times. There's too much time left in the season. And maybe it takes today's off day, and that brings them some life. Maybe it takes another team meeting. But they have a manager who I'm not going to blame at all because I don't think he's been that bad, but he's never been through this, Ant. And you hope that having his right-hand man in Gibbons there maybe helps him get through some of these struggles. But they don't exactly have a coaching staff and leadership because Pete Alonso is not a leader. He is not a captain. Maybe Francisco Lindor is, but who knows? They don't have anyone with a C in their chest on this team. They don't have the leadership. They don't have the coaches. They don't have the manager that are going to power them through this and make them turn the ship. They got to look from within. They got to look to their back of their baseball cards and realize they're better than this, and they have to be better than this, or they might be in another city. They might have another contract. They might lose out on future money if shit doesn't change because it's hitting the fan now, and it's only May 23rd, and it could hit the fan even harder in a couple of weeks here, Ant.
Yeah, and a lot of it has been brushed under the rug because you mentioned The Knicks were in the playoffs. The Rangers are still in the playoffs. The Yankees are playing so well. We got football coming up soon. So the Mets better kick it into high gear. And like you said, start looking within and try to figure this out, because a lot of these players aren't going anywhere. And, I think back to the Knicks. This reminds me of like when the Knicks initially got Stoudemire and Carmelo Anthony, and they had that little couple of year run where they did well. That's kind of what the Scherzer year felt like to me. And then it kind of fell apart and it got really deep, really bad. And I'm not saying that this is going to happen because, Steve Cohen, there's no, there's no floor for, what do you call it? I can't think of it right now. There's no salary cap. There you go. There's no salary cap in baseball, so he could spend if he wants to. There's the luxury tax, but he could spend. This team, and I said this before multiple times on my podcast, that this team has to find a way to win and have a winning record by the end of this season, because you are not going to attract free agents with just Steve Cohen's money. It's not just Steve Cohen's money, it's Mets money. And the Mets have not shown a winning culture just yet. And if you're not doing that, you may be able to get a high price free agent, but you're going to continuously have to overpay. And I want to stop being that team that has to overpay for a player like Jason Bay or even Francisco Lindor. That was an overpay. They had to do it, but it was an overpay. Pete Alonso, if they're going to sign him in a free agent, they're going to overpay for him. They probably overpaid for Brandon Nimmo, and they did it for Verlander, and they did it for Scherzer. Those guys weren't going to come here unless you overpaid them. And that's what I want the Mets to stop doing. I want them to get, players like the Dodgers do, or how the Braves are signing players and not having to spend exorbitant amount of money. Why do they do that? Because they have a winning culture. We don't have that yet. So instead of thinking about having to make the playoffs and making the World Series, put a winning culture in place first and then move on from there. Because if this team is terrible and Pete Alonso's gone, you can forget about, and I don't even know if they're going to really be in play for Juan Soto. I want them to be, but like the overpaying for Juan Soto, instead of it being 600 mil or 500 mil, double that, because this team is just not good right now. I want them to be, but they're just not good. And they have players that are supposed to be good that are failing us big time.
They're a bunch of losers. They really are, sadly, they're all the last pick on the kickball team. And I've been there. I got roasted in high school. I was, fat guy, class clown. Did my homework. Good kid, didn't curse, drink, would download the clean version of rap songs. They're the Jake Brown downloading Big Things Poppin' instead of Big Shit Poppin' by T.I. That's who they are. They're the good kid who just wants to get beat up. They're getting beat up. That was probably a terrible analogy, but that's who they are. They're getting pounded. They're getting stuffed into the locker by teams.
Dude,
and
Andres Jimenez, who was a part of this team, that was like the icing on the cake for
you
me.
knew that was coming because he didn't have a hit the first two games. I'm like, the Andres Jimenez momento is coming, and it came in 3-run home run style. And I don't even think it's a debate. They won that trade. The Guardians, I guess we could say we'll see, because there's so many years on both their contracts left, because Jimenez did get an extension, although he's making like $6 million this year. Lindor's making 32. Like the money is off the chart. Like, we'll see down the road. But for now, you almost wish you didn't make that trade and you were able to put that money into other places. I hope Lindor turns it around. I know he had great years the last 2 years, but Andres Jimenez was an all-star too. Like, it wasn't like he was chop liver. He had a bit of a down year last year, but 2 years ago, Jimenez was great. This year, Jimenez has been much better than Lindor. Defensively, they've been the same. Jimenez is almost as good defensively as Lindor. So, and he steals bases too. He's a 30 stolen base guy. He just doesn't hit as many homers. I mean, we'll see that. I'm not going to go through this now because it's kind of a dumb argument to make now, but it's one of those moves from, Epler and that front office and that regime that you're like, wow, like Sandy, Epler.
Who was it? No, that Sandy? Trade was who was the guy that got
It wasn't Zach
not
Scott.
Zach
He wasn't
Scott,
here.
the one before him.
Jared Porter was not here
Jared
long
Porter
enough.
made that trade and then
Did he?
was released the week after. I think that trade went down.
We'll have to check with our research. You might be right.
Yeah.
But
who was saying no to that trade in the beginning? I know there was a little hesitation because of Andres Gimenez and what he showed in 2020, but who said no to that trade, and then who said no to signing him? Because I saw a lot of people upset with Steve Cohen if he did not sign Lindor before opening day.
Well, the argument was let him play and then he'll earn more, or just get the contract now. You wonder if you let him play that year, what the contract would have been. Because his first year, he was not good. He had a bad first year. So he might have
been lower.
It would have been lower.
But you also had, what was it? Seager was available.
Imagine Corey Seager on the Mets, or Trey Turner on the Mets right now, or Simeon. Any three of those guys, the difference they make. I mean, Corey Seager was unbelievable last season.
Turner didn't have a good year, though.
Turner was fine, though. His final numbers were fine. Now he's hurt now, but he was killing it. It's a sad state of affairs. And you made the point, like, hopefully it's not the post 2013 Knicks. Like, hopefully that wild card exit to the Padres wasn't our moment, because last year 75 wins, and the guys you mentioned, the Arauzes of the world, we had to watch the final 2 months. Now a team that's almost out of contention before Memorial Day, that we might see maybe young prospects who hopefully pan out, and they better goddamn pan out, because you traded Scherzer, Verlander to get them. Hopefully they pan out, but this sure looks like a rebuild coming. And saying that to a Mets fan base who's been through it, who's been through enough losing, it's a hard sell. When you're making the ballpark more corporate, you're making Delta 3 times the size, 3 times the price with the club behind home. Like I said, price is $40 parking. If you're going to do all this, it's a hard sell for a rebuild, unless you're going to do dollar dog night every night and give us some free parking, or cut the parking in half. Because the fans no one's coming out to the ballpark to watch a half-ass product because they love Citi Field. I love Citi Field, but I'm not going to spend exorbitant amounts to go there because I love the stadium. I'll just go to Summer Club, or I'll go tan on my roof.
And look, I've seen people on Twitter, just do it. Just do the full rebuild. Be careful what you wish for and ask for, because baseball rebuilding is totally different than a football rebuild, a hockey, and basketball. These kids have to go through many levels of the minors, and some don't even make it. So look at Kevin Parada. He's had such a tough go, and he was our top pick a couple years ago. So, like, it's not easy to rebuild a team. Look at the Mets from 74 on. It took them almost a full decade to get to where they were in 84, 85, 86. That stuff. Look, even the Yankees, they just came out with that documentary about the 90s. They were bad for, what was it, from like 87 to 94? Those take years. And, the Mets are just, if you're going to full rebuild, I'm just saying, just be careful what you wish for, because this place is going to get even emptier than it is right now.
Everyone points to the Orioles. Look, it worked for them.
Look how long it took them.
You're not in Kansas anymore. We're not in Baltimore. It's not as easy of a sell to rebuild when you're in New York City. So I'm very curious to see how these next months play out. Maybe they show some heart and win. And we're yelling and ranting. Next week, if they're going to win, we'll be excited again. It's the roller coaster of being the Mets. I don't want this team to lose and rebuild. I want them to win. But from what I'm seeing, it would take a Christmas miracle. And Kodai saying it seems like every update is progressively worse. It's like,
I'm not even counting him in this season. If he comes, he comes.
It's like he threw the ball outside of his backyard yesterday. Like, it's never like he's on a mound and he's throwing heat. It's like, he had a rehab reset, a setback, excuse me. He had a setback today, and, we'll see where he's at in 2 weeks. Oh, Carlos Mendoza, he knows his body better than anyone else. Like, all right, it's cool. When are we going to see him? And Alvarez is not going to come here and save the Mets. He could hit 40 dingers. No one else is hitting. I mean, look at Alonso. He's got 11 homers. He's got 24 RBIs. Most of them are solo homers. So It's a rough watch, but hey, come out to the ballpark this weekend because they're wearing the City Connect jersey Saturday and giving out a tote bag.
I'm going to get my tote bag. That's what I'm going for.
I'm going to put the tote bag over my head. I'm going to cover my head with the tote bag, and I'm going to burn the City Connect jersey in hell.
How many people you think are going to actually do that? If they lose the first game on Friday, and let's say somehow Saturday they either blow this game or they get like trounced, like people are putting those bags over their head. I wouldn't doubt it at all.
Oh, and then Hello Kitty glow-in-the-dark bobbleheads Sunday. Start bringing kitties out to the ballpark, preferably black ones. Throw them on the field. Maybe that'll give us some luck. How about you give out a kitty cat? I'm allergic. Don't ever go near me with a cat. Don't worry, next Friday, fireworks night. Maybe the offense will show some fireworks. The only game that might sell some tickets. Poor Darryl Strawberry's retirement next Saturday. Darryl's got to watch this. Darryl Strawberry is going to get his number retired, and then Jeff McNeil will follow with a ground ball to second base for a routine ground out with the bases loaded.
Did you, by any chance, watch his documentary that came out this week?
He had a new one this week.
Yeah, they did it for Doc, and they did one this week for Darryl leading up to the retirement. And
I didn't see it. What was it good?
Yeah, it came on after. You know what? It was during a bad loss. It came on after the game. I somehow stuck around because I wanted to see it, but it came on after the post game. And everything that he's saying about how that team came together, what they represented, how they played the game. And I'm sitting there, I'm thinking the 2024 Mets are definitely don't run by those type of rules and that type of philosophy. Like you don't see any of that type of play. And obviously that team won the World Series, but what they got from Keith Hernandez, the leadership, just all these different things. This team, man, they better figure it out, and they better figure it out quickly. But to be 6 out by Memorial Day on the third wild card, not the second or the first, the third wild card, to be that many games out, that's unacceptable to me. And I said last week, getting swept by the Marlins or not sweeping the Marlins would have been unacceptable. They didn't even, they only won one game, and that's freaking ridiculous against the worst team in baseball. Unacceptable.
These guys, this core, there's no leader. There's no captain. To be honest, I don't think a lot of them like each other. And this is just a belief. I don't have like a source telling me anything. But I think they're in their own cliques. They do their own thing. Different guys go out with different guys. I know some were out at a club in Cleveland on Monday night. Like, these guys have their own groups they go with. That 86 team was a band of brothers. And that's a different era. Social media has changed a lot. And that includes baseball players. But it is very clear that they're playing for the name on the back and not the name on the front.
I've said that for probably about a week or two now. It's the eye test. You see, what you're seeing from this team. It doesn't look like you said, they are playing for the front of the jersey, which is what they should be. And when it comes to the trade deadline, I care more about the front of the jersey. So I don't care who they trade. I just want to see a championship in my lifetime. I was born 2 weeks after the Mets won the World Series in 86. So I have not seen that yet. And that's all I want to see. I don't care if Lindor's on this team when they do it. Alonso. I don't care if none of them are on this team when they do it. Just get us a championship.
I was born in 91, so at least you're closer to the championship than I was. Like you were closer to becoming a human being in 1986. Now, we'll just keep waiting and waiting, but let's hope they turn around. It'll be a 10-game homestand, 3 Giants, 3 Dodgers, 4 Diamondbacks, and if not, we know what the month of June is for the Mets, and it usually is never a pretty sight. And I'm scared that, Memorial Day, they're 8 or 9 out. I'm scared on the 4th of July, this team is 15 games under 500. And it's a scary thought that we might have 3 months of a team out of it. We already know 2 months. We did that last year when they the fire sale, the trade deadline. A potential 3 to 4 months of meaningless baseball with still several home games, promotions, tickets, parking. It's harder and harder to sell. And while the weather might be good, I'll go tan in Astoria Park over tan and watch meaningless baseball for a team that doesn't play with each other, play for each other, play for the city, and show any heart. And it's a frustrating team, and we've seen a lot of them in our lifetime as Mets fans. We've seen a lot of teams that have been excruciatingly painful to watch, but still kind of had more heart, and there were more likable guys in this team. This team, I'm not saying they don't likable guys, but they do have a few you want to punch in the face sometimes. I'm sorry. Anthony Rivera, he hosts the Subway to Shea podcast. I think we've done enough commiserating in this episode. Follow him on X and his podcast, Ant Rivera 86 at Subway to Shea. And it was sorry to keep you waiting for the first 10 minutes, but that actually felt good. Now I can make my HelloFresh lunch, and I think I'm grumpy. I'm hungry. Maybe that's it.
Yeah,
we
I think
got
that's
off
it.
Day today. They're not going to lose today, and off days are wins in Mets world now. But let's hope these guys start performing like the baseball cards and start showing up. I don't think it's going to happen, but that's all we can hope for. And every day is a new day in baseball, and who knows? But there's definitely seems to be a storm brewing, and that means a lot of guys won't be on this roster come August 1st. But me and you will be. Subway to Shea, the Sick Podcast, Mets Magic. Make sure you're subscribed. YouTube, Sick Podcast, Mets Magic on YouTube, Sick Pod Mets on Twitter. Thumbs up below, comment below. Let's go Mets, and we'll see you at Citi Field. Thanks so much for coming on Mets Magic.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you next time. Let's go Mets.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Mets Magic on YouTube, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.